I am a fan of women's wrestling. No, I didn't say Divas wrestling. I said women's wrestling. Recently on Raw, this would have been on the 23rd, they did a Cough and You Missed It match, where the Bellas took on Emma and Paige. Emma and Paige, who had a phenomenal match on the first NXT TakeOver. Emma, who has pretty much been relegated to squash matches. And Paige, who has had some pretty decent matches when she's given the time to have a decent match. Against the Bellas, who have regressed back to their 5 years ago, when everyone they beat was called a loser, even with the little head L. Because Vince and company have no idea how to write a compelling female character. Unless, of course, you're AJ. So there was a small hashtag movement, like, give Divas a chance. First off, I think if you think that a hashtag is going to change a multi-million-dollar company's perception, as well as the casual fan's perception about a certain aspect of the product, you're kind of deluding yourself. I haven't gone to a live wrestling event in quite some time. I really don't want to go to an E-event because Raw is so hit or miss. I don't want to drop $80, spend 4 hours in an arena, spend 3 hours driving to potentially see an event that's going to suck. The pay-per-views are slightly better than Raw's. Smackdown is better than Raw. I would rather fly. I live an hour outside Chicago. Well, hour to 3 hours traffic depending. I'd rather fly to Orlando and see NXT. Because I know I'm going to get good, solid wrestling. The wrestling that I actually miss is Shimmer. I miss not going to watch real female professional athletes ply their craft. And even when you go there, they sell out the Berwyn Eagles Club, a super small venue. When someone's asked the promoter if they'd go someplace else, he was like, women's wrestling is severely niche. Or niche. So, we go to this area, people travel from all over the country to come watch this wrestling. Because it is phenomenal wrestling. Shimmer, female athletes. Look it up. Amazing wrestling. The wrestling the women are allowed to do on Raw and SmackDown is pitiful amount of time. And therefore everyone thinks the women suck. Because they're not given the time to actually do a match. They're pretty much out there to look pretty, maybe get a slight pop from the crowd, have a match that's almost like lock up, maybe a small flurry of moves finisher, then leave. Sometimes there's more time spent with the music and the entrance in the actual match. It's happened a few times on SmackDown where the time it takes for both songs to be played, then they get in the ring, the ref to ring the bell, and the match is pretty much not even longer than that. And it's pretty pathetic. However, if you've watched SmackDown or Raw, you pretty much realize almost nobody gets a really solid match. You tend to have your main event match gets a lot of time, but then you have your workhorse match. Beyond that, a lot of it is not very long matches. Now, if you watch main event superstars, you actually get to see a Divas match that's going to be maybe close or even over 5 minutes. That's like 5 whole minutes. Recently on the network, I watched Brie Bella take on Summer Rae. I know what you're thinking. That match had to be bowling shoe ugly. It's actually pretty decent. Most of the matches on main event are actually pretty decent. Here's what happens. They give you like 8 minutes on main event. I then get to see the 3-minute version of that match on Raw. Why? Why don't I get to see the 8-minute version on main event and then a 6-minute version on Raw? Well, the Triple H said out of the 3 hours, it's hard to book everything in. I love you, Triple H. You've got your two tattoos on my body. One's your logo, one's your signature. If in a 3-hour block of time, it's difficult to devote 6 minutes. You have 180 minutes. 6 minutes. I'll be honest with this. You can have the Divas start to come down to the ring. You can cut to commercial. You can come back from commercial. They're both in the ring. Then you have them go. You actually can use the commercial time to get them in the ring. I don't need to see Nikki Bella do her. That she's been doing that since she started. I've seen Paige come down to the ring long enough, unzip her coat, throw her coat back, lean back, and scream. It's amazing to watch. It's fantastic. But I would rather you skip that and give me a match. I would rather you do one less replay. Vince has complained that the average person who's watching wrestling is sitting there with, smartphone in hand. This is the case. I use my phone for the recording. Smartphone in hand. On Twitter. Maybe they're playing WWE Immortals on their iPad. I've done that while watching wrestling. They're doing something else because they're like, huh? Or they're just doing this, and occasionally just glancing away from their screen as they play Candy Crush or Angry Birds or Flappy Candy or whatever they're doing on their phones. And the constant amount of recapping allows that to happen. OSW Review even joked, you can watch the last hour of Raw because they recap the whole show anyways. But I'm getting off subject. The Divas are given a chance. Freaking hate the term Divas. They're given a chance on Superstars and a main event to put on actual matches that have actual length to them, that actually do somewhat of a story. And it shows that a few of them are actually pretty good. Beyond that, you have NXT. TNA for a while actually used to do the occasional just knockout show. Normally that was a TNA show that I would watch. The one was just like the best of the knockout matches. I want to see women who know how to actually apply their craft in the ring. I want to see the crowd involved. If you watch NXT, you know their matches are not the, ooh, here comes Charlotte versus Sasha. Time to take a piss. Or time to go chant random wrestlers' names. Chant for JBL. No. NXT crowd, they get their feet planted, they get their hands warmed up because they're going to start clapping and they're going to start chanting, this is awesome. They're getting their vocal cords ready, they're taking their asthma inhalers, and they're getting ready because they know they're going to watch some awesome women's wrestling. Not Divas wrestling, women's wrestling. And the crowd will chant, this is awesome. And you'll watch women just go out there and put their bodies on the line just like the men do. And you're like, this is an amazing match. You will watch psychology, you will watch physicality. Every single thing that the men can do, you will see that. And it's like, this is what wrestling can be for the Divas division. However, we've had years of substandard women's wrestling in the E. The fan base has been taught to not care. Well, does Vince have the cojones to dedicate time to make fans care? And I don't mean about the Bellas. You have a wider division than just the Bellas. That's almost as bad as being like, well, for main event, it's Cena. We gotta make sure Cena's pushed all over the place. If you look at the merchandise, it's like Cena's got the most. When it comes to women, the Bellas have the most. If it's two of them, they can co-brand. It's a lot easier to co-brand. Get to my fan arm real quick. It's easier to co-brand. They mentioned that when AJ got a shirt, that she was the first woman to have a shirt since Trish. It's because the women really haven't been given the opportunity. Yes, there were no Funkadactyl shirts and Funkadactyl pom-poms. They did nothing to market the Funkadactyls. Even though they created a tag team They had the Funky Dads walking down the ring to pretty much get Naomi ready, and to get her to be essentially a main event player in the Divas division, who currently just comes down with the Usos. It is nice they actually have her and Natalya coming down with those tag teams. They at least get screen time, which will eventually lead to potentially this, what's that thing called, where they get inside the four-sided square, that squared circle, and they bounce off the ropes and they like hit and do moves. Oh, a match. Vince doesn't care about women's wrestling. Kevin Dunn doesn't care about women's wrestling. Triple H cares about women's wrestling. Stephanie cares about women's wrestling. So much people say, well, they don't care. They do care. Here's the problem. You got one person steering the ship. That's Vince. WrestleMania a couple of years back, they were supposed to do, I think it was like Miz and Mizdow and the Bellas were taking on like the Funkadactyls and Tons of Funk. But matches ran over. So they cut the Divas match. Yes, their position in the card is to make sure there's enough time that if something runs over, they can cut the Divas match and not cut anything from the men's matches. If you've ever been, we used to go to Buffalo Wild Wings. That was the cheapest place to watch wrestling. You know what happens? It's like, oop, Divas match. You would see a line formed in the bathroom. Nobody cared. And it's like, but then I watched Summer Rae and Brie Bella, and the crowd actually kind of into it. Not like Smackdown into it, where, you know, like, you hear, like, New Day, and then they pan to the crowd, and everyone's kind of just sitting there. The crowd was in, you see them clapping, see them cheering, you know, they actually got into the match, because it was a decent match. The crowd isn't going to get into push finisher. Unless you're like the female Ryback. You're like Rybina. You know, they're not going to get into a squash match. It just doesn't work that way. Will they be given a chance sooner or later? They kind of are on Main Event and SmackDown. I mean, Main Event and Superstars, sorry. On SmackDown and Raw, no. On pay-per-views, no. Nope. It's a combination of the fans were taught to not care about women's wrestling. Therefore, Vince and Kevin Dunn have dictated a very specific way, like, fans don't care about women's wrestling. They did that long enough that the average fan goes, I don't care about women's wrestling. And it's that nice cycle of, well, you know what? We give you crap, you think it's crap. We give you crap, you think it's crap. And then all of a sudden you don't care. I do care. I have watched so many crappy women's matches to hope that I see a good one. That's not NXT. NXT, I think it was last week, they did Sasha Banks versus Blue Pants. Well, love debates. Blue Pants. Her name is freaking Blue Pants. She comes down, her theme song is Enzo Amore and Colin Cassidy. Pretty much doing the Price is Right song, talking like, from the clearance rack, Blue Pants. And the crowd got into it. It's a smart crowd, so anybody could get over in front of a smart crowd. But she comes out in what looks like a bad X-Men cosplay of Kitty Pryde, puts on a decent match, and gets more time than Emma and Paige versus the Bellas. And it's only an hour. And it's a solid hour. It's a workable hour that makes sense. Raw with 3 hours is a hard time making a nice, coherent storyline. Way back, I was like, Brie should get involved in the Daniel Bryan storyline. And she did. And that led to some really, really poor segments. Because Brie, not really a great actress. Sorry. She's not really that great. Sometimes it's hard to tell if it's the material or if it's the person, but its moments are pretty good, but it just... The payoff was Stephanie and Brie had a phenomenal match. And the match went long because Stephanie was in it. Which then led to the battle between Brie and Nikki. Why they decided to make it like a personal family feud that was just horrible, no idea. Like, oh, the segments did well. I'm pretty sure that the near like constant wardrobe malfunctions that the two of them have had might have helped pop the crowd some, but when the easier direction would have been Nikki attacked Brie, allying herself with Stephanie, she therefore joins the Authority. Nikki comes out with the Authority, she has to do a lot less talking, and then when she beats Brie, and Brie's like, I don't want to join the Authority, it ends up being pretty easy to be like, oh hey, have you seen the jewelry line that the Authority is allowing us to do? If you align yourself with the Authority, you can have financial freedom. Financial freedom is a really easy storyline to push with Nikki and Brie, because Daniel Bryan had a neck injury. Bam. Align yourself with the Authority, you can make the money. In case Daniel gets injured again, you won't have to worry about your bills. The Authority takes care of its own. Boom. Now all of a sudden, Brie can easily be a heel. You can put a little first between Brie and Bryan on actual screen. When John Cena was being pressured into bringing the Authority back, Nikki could have pretty easily been backstage and been like, John, me talk with you about the Authority. And it would have been these really easy, simple vignettes that would transition really nicely. Why don't the Bellas want to see Paige as champion? Because the Authority knows that she's not the person that you can put on a magazine. Now it goes from like, you're different, you look weird, you're pasty, you might lose there, which is what they did years ago. And it sucked then, and it sucks now. I will say Nikki is very good, she's gotten much better in the ring. Brie, no. Nikki, yes. Instead they could have done, you know what, the Authority doesn't want a pasty-faced vampire, a pasty-faced goth girl. What do you shop at Hot Topic? There's so many things they can easily do. You just throw like, the Authority doesn't want. And now all of a sudden you've got her, Paige, in a Daniel Bryan sort of role in a women's division. She does need to constantly fight one of the Bellas. Then you come out and be like, oh, the Authority's allowed us to pick your opponent. Boom. You then have her take on someone like Alicia Fox, or whoever you want to have her face. You then have the Bellas having the power of the Authority to make Paige's life a slightly living hell. She can still win those matches and look fantastic and become a stronger face. It's an easier storyline. Taking the overarching storyline of the Authority and using that a little bit. And now some people go, I don't like the Authority. Well, guess what? They're using the Authority by association. The same way that Seth Rollins uses that to do things on Smackdown, you have two Divas doing the same thing. Boom. Doesn't require them to do really long promos, doesn't require a tremendous amount of writing to be done for them, because the framework is there. You adjust the framework to them, make the title mean something. Now almost you're not just defeating the Bellas, you're defeating the hand-picked champion of the Authority. It's a stronger story. It's an easier story. And it allows the Divas to actually get more time. Because now all of a sudden when you've got, whoever's currently feuding with the Authority, you've got your Ryback, you've got your Ziggler, your Rowan. Now, so to go along with it, you now have some Divas who are now trying to fight their way against the Authority, or else they'll never get a clean shot at the title. Boom. Pretty simple. And then sooner or later, you can have Steph turn on the Bellas. You can have Steph feud with whoever the champion is. There's your SummerSlam match. Or WrestleMania match. It's pretty easy to do that. However, it takes time and it takes effort. And we've seen how poor the E has been recently at building anybody who is not one of the main event guys. That's why we don't have a good mid-card. That's why we don't have a great tag division. They focus on the one belt, on the one guy, who is the one man in the 21-1. That's all they seem to know how to focus on. But at the same time, from a casual fan perspective, I like women's wrestling. Do I own any Divas t-shirts? Nope. Did I buy any Divas onesies for my daughter? Nope. She got the Paul Heyman one and CM Punk one. Did I get her the page with Stink Again on the butt? Nope. The Divas ones are kind of like, I'm not buying anything Bellas related, sorry. And that's what a lot of the Divas stuff is. It's Bellas. Behind me, I've got, the AJ zombie. Why not make a Paige zombie? Would have been perfect. But they didn't do that. Should the women make as much money as the men? At this time, with how underutilized they are, it's almost impossible to make the statement that they should be. Back in the day, in the Attitude Era, when they used to have their giant posters, it was Rock, Austin, for a long time. The third person was China. For the Attitude Era, you had Sable. Sable's stupid over. Watch them, well, if you could find, they're really not on the network that much. If you can find some of the Attitude Era ones, you will hear Sable's music hit and you will hear the crowd pop. Loudest pop of the night's going to come from Sable. It's like Sable, Sunny. Say women that got over. During the era of Trish, Alita, Victoria, they put on some ridiculously good matches. Looking back now, I watched a Melina Candice Michelle match, and it was pretty freaking good. I watched a Candice Michelle Maurice match, and it was pretty good. A lot of the Eve Torres matches were very good. But at the time, they were kind of being overshadowed by Kelly Kelly. It was like, she really can't wrestle. Some of the ones who became the most popular, the ones who all of a sudden had no skill at wrestling. It was like, you're pretty. Here's your belt. Should I become better at my craft? Belt. You're going to take on Beth Phoenix. Okay, you're beat up by a roll-up. Okay, for like how many months? 3 months in a row. Shouldn't Beth Phoenix have pretty much just destroyed her repeatedly? Yeah. They're taking team of Beth Phoenix and Natalya. Shouldn't they be just destroying them easily in the ring? Yeah. But you're going to lose by schoolboy. So legitimate wrestlers were downplayed, and the ones that Laurinaitis picked out of a catalog were the ones that got pushed as the top superstars. And you reap what you sow. You've got women who can wrestle now who are given no time because they're predominantly used as eye candy. And it's going to take a couple years in order to actually reverse that trend and have women who can wrestle actually frickin' get the time to wrestle.